my coffee while I'm talking?
Yes, you can drink your coffee while you're talking. I have my water. I've already had too much coffee today. Okay, let's get going.
All right.
Okay, so Cyndy, tell the listeners, our summit friends, a little bit about your vision for the world and the dream that you have for the women that you work with.
Well, so as you know, I'm super passionate about what I do. I spent a great deal of my life not feeling good about how I looked. And what I realize is that it might sound superficial, but when we look in the mirror and we don't feel like we look our best, or even don't feel good about how we look at all, we carry that kind of as a gray cloud over our shoulder. And so my vision is, I think I've shared with you the statistic from the research that the Dove Foundation did, that 10,000 women in 10 different countries, and the results were only 4% of all women worldwide believe they're beautiful. So I guess my personal vision, as lofty as it might sound, is to reverse those statistics, because I believe every woman deserves to feel beautiful. It's not about being model thin or having classical good looks, but we carry our physical being with us everywhere we go. And if we don't feel comfortable in our own skin, it gets in the way of success, personally and professionally. And so I'm really committed to helping as many women as possible. And I focus on women because I am one, and I love men. I have a husband and a son, but I think that women have a harder time. People ask me when I speak, I'll share the statistic and they'll say, well, what about the men? Well, so I did some research on men.
They probably all think they're beautiful.
They do. So the truth is that men are biologically hardwired to overestimate their physical attractiveness. So here's another one for the guys. Life is just easier if you are, especially if you're a white male in America, right? So I just feel like it's time that women are taken more seriously, and that for us to do everything we need to do to live our best lives, we also need to feel like our outside mirrors our inside.
And one of the things that I want to point out right at the beginning, before we really deep dive into some questions, you're not about body size. In fact, you celebrate the type of body, and really, because I've worked with you, and I am not where I should be as in terms of what I want to weigh and all of that good stuff. You didn't even mention that once. You went right into, let's figure out what your body type is and then help you show up in the best way. So I just want to make that clear, that this is not about losing weight or about changing things about yourself, because that's not what you're about.
No, of course, I'm supportive of anybody who makes a personal choice. So if they are already on a weight loss journey, or if they feel like they're too thin, or whatever it is, I feel a little bit like it's the elephant in the living room to not talk about weight at all, because I think when we don't feel comfortable with our bodies, it's hard to dress in a way that we feel good. But I think for no other reason besides health reasons and your own personal self-esteem should weight even be a discussion.
Well, and one of the things that you and I talked about was, if the clothes in your closet do not fit your body, every day is going to be a disaster when you get up to get dressed, because it's frustrating. And you've told a story yourself about throwing all of the clothes in your closet.
I know. It's a disaster.
Yeah. And so I think that was the other thing that really resonated with me when you encouraged me to just purchase some clothes that fit, so that I can get dressed in the morning to feel good about myself.
Yeah. And it's up to every woman. Like, one of the things that I talk to a lot of my clients about is having a limited wardrobe. They call it a capsule wardrobe, where you have just a few pieces that you can wear a lot of different ways, and then accessorize. Like, I love the accessories. Is that part of your shirt, or is that a necklace? I love it.
Yeah, fun. And I got it. It was $4 at a thrift shop.
Oh, good for you. See, and that's exactly what, I have a lot of things that I believe in this regard, but one of them is, like, it should be easy.
Yeah.
And another one is that if we buy, so a lot of women, I think, shop and they buy clothes because it gives them an adrenaline or serotonin kind of push. Like I just bought something and I'm going to take it home and I'm going to feel great in it. And then when they get it home and they look in the mirror, they don't always feel great in it. And with fast fashion, as you know, I talk a bit about that, like it's ending up in the landfills and it's exploiting women.
Yeah.
You know, if we're going to be all about empowering women to feel great, we have to think about kind of the food chain. Like, how did our clothes come to us? And so if you can get something used, you know, or recycled, that's awesome. Or even at outlet stores, you know, so have fewer items, wear more ways, and think about where your items are coming from. I think it's anyway, I think I just went off on a tangent there, but something I believe in.
I'm gonna shut my door because my dogs are barking.
Okay.
Okay, so you going personal a little bit without going too deep.
Yeah.
You had an awesome life. Didn't have a great childhood. You had some challenges to overcome. How did overcoming those challenges impact the woman you are today and the fire inside you to help other women?
You know, if I think back on the woman I was even 20 years ago, I don't even like, it's like I look at that person and it's like, it's a totally different person. And I really think that, you know, in my case, I was born pigeon-toed. I was super shy. I tell the story of how I sat in first grade and physically chewed buttons off my clothes because I was terrified to be there and wouldn't have eye contact with anybody. The school psychologist was calling home and telling my parents they thought I was mentally retarded. It was a really difficult start. And so not only did I have my peers telling me I looked and walked funny, right? But because of my behavior, I had adults calling my parents, telling them that I thought I was stupid. So when you start life like that and you don't have the support, which I didn't have at home, what I've learned through many years of therapy now is that you kind of, like, if you have low self-esteem, you go into the world and you try to prove to yourself, unconsciously you're trying to prove to yourself that how you feel about yourself is correct, right? So you don't set good personal boundaries and you relate to the wrong people and you let people take advantage of you and you put yourself down a lot. And in my case, my first husband was abusive and like all kinds of things don't go well in your life when you don't believe in yourself. And so that's one big reason that I'm super passionate about this. It's not that I believe that if you dress a certain way, all of a sudden your self-esteem is going to be amazing, but I believe it's the easiest thing you can do to boost your self-esteem. And so it was a combination for me of a lot of therapy and then slowly having the right kinds of people in my life that gave me feedback that I was enough and that I was valuable. And now I have an amazing husband and son, and I'm surrounded by amazing people. And so it's a journey, but it's huge in how you live your life when you believe in yourself or you don't believe in yourself.
Yeah, I agree. And so to kind of piggyback on that question, one of the things, again, since we work together, that you put as such a forefront of the work is choosing words, adjectives that help describe yourself. And so part of that also comes into play, I guess, when you're talking about your self-esteem. Can you talk a little bit about that process and about some of the adjectives that maybe some of your other clients have chosen and why that's so important?
Yeah, so what I kind of realized, as I got into this business, I left corporate America, right? And I started as a portrait photographer. And I quickly realized that as much as I loved the craft of photography, I love helping women look beautiful. And what if I could do that in life? So that's when I got trained and certified as an image consultant, right? And I kind of like one day put it all together, which is what made me start to go down this path that everything I knew about personal branding, right? Because I was a VP of branding in a big company. It's the same principles for us. And then everything I knew about art and photography are a way that we can look at ourselves in artful terms. And so this light bulb went off like, oh my God, I know how to do this thing that I've struggled with all my life and I've got to teach it to everybody. So what I believe is it's just like branding a product or branding a company, which most people can relate to and understand, but we are our own brand. And whether you choose to have one or not, you have one, right? So if you show up on time, I mean, I tell people, like, think about like your friends who are sporty and who are always talking about working out and their green smoothies, right? That's their brand, and they're healthy, and that's their brand. And what about the nurturing friends who always write you a card when you're sick and are there for you and loving, and you know you can count on them? And then you have the friends that, like, no matter what, they don't ever show up on time. They don't call you. They don't return your call. They always let you down. That's their brand. Whether they like it or not, that's their brand. So that's evidence-based branding. And I think we all need to think about that. Like, how do we show up? What do we say on social media? You know, all that kind of stuff. But the look and feel of the brand is how you dress. And so you can dress in a way that communicates that you're lovely and demure and sweet and nurturing, or you can brand yourself as somebody that's kind of edgy and dramatic and bold, or worldly and authentic, or elegant and sophisticated. So what I know to be true, what research has proven, is it takes fewer than 7 seconds to make a first impression, right?
Crazy.
And some scientists think it's like within milliseconds, that our brain is hardwired, because we needed to know, like, whether that lion was going to come eat us, or, you know, a caveman was going to club us or be our friend, right? We had to be able to very quickly know, like, can I trust that thing or not? And so whether we want to admit it or not, it is hardwired that we judge one another first based on how we look. And so if this is a communication vehicle, then it should be intentional. And so if we start with, who are you? Like, get really clear on who are you? What are your values? What do you believe in? And if you can distill that down to a few adjectives, and then every day when you get dressed or when you buy clothes, you say, does this communicate that I'm elegant, creative, right? Does this, your necklace communicate that you're, an authentic woman of the world? Absolutely, right? You appear, you're approachable, you are authentic, you are brilliant, all of that comes through in your brand. What were your words again?
Quiet power, authentic, and worldly were the top three. And approachable was another one that we chose because I can sometimes not be approachable. And so we've added, with your help, we added some funkiness so that people would want to comment on, like, I love that necklace. And then there's a conversation.
Exactly.
So, yeah. And
so
it's been great. It's been good to have those words too, because not only do they help with that everyday dressing of the brand, but it's a self-esteem booster to have those constantly playing in your head. It's really great. So I love those words. And I would encourage,
sometimes it takes you out of, does this look good on me? Does this look good on me? And it's more like, what does this communicate?
Yeah.
And so I created these avatars. I have nine avatars and 3 versions of each avatar, so that they're in different hair colors and skin tones to represent all women. And so I have one client who wasn't feeling good about herself, and she said, I did a pre-release of the avatars because I really made them for this book that I'm launching in September. And so I showed them to her, and she's like, I love this avatar because I don't really feel good about how I look right now, and I could just envision myself as that cute little avatar. And so when I'm getting dressed, I think of the avatar and not me. And at least for right now, that's helping her. So hopefully she gets to a point where she doesn't need the avatar to feel good about herself. But
no, that's great. So going on to the thing about her not feeling confident in herself, it leads to a huge slippery slope that impacts every part of our lives. This is deeper than just how we look. Like, it's about how we show up to the world. It's about future opportunities. It's about how we raise our children. I could talk about that forever, but I'll let you touch on that.
But how we raise our children?
Well, just in the way that we show up to the world, and how we live inside of our brand, and who we want to portray, how we want to portray ourselves, that impacts everything, including raising our kids.
Exactly. No, it does. Exactly. Because, one of the things that when women first start working with me, a lot of times they're like, well, I thought you were just going to give me a couple of business suits to wear, you know? And it's like, well, that's not what I do, right? I mean, if you want that, there's somebody else that can help you with that, I'm sure. But what I do is I help my clients really think about who they are completely as a person, down to writing a personal mission statement. So that if you think about why you're living this life and then you want to show up in a way that represents that, it does affect it. First, it gets you clear on what is important to me. And no, you're not a different person when you go to work than when you hang out with your kids or you're with your husband or when you're with your friends. You are the same person with the same values. You just need to dress different occasions, right? So if you can first get clear on that, a lot of women are like, it's just mind blowing. I never even did this work before, right? Which I think we should all do. And then if you think about showing up in a way that communicates that, it really is uncanny how this whole aspect of our unconscious, how we are drawn to each other. We want to be around people that reflect and resemble our values. And so you will see somebody across the room and unconsciously you're going to know, I want to meet her and not her or him because they represent your values. Yeah.
Well, and this, I also want to point out, this doesn't only apply to people who are working or who have an office job.
Yes.
This is for the stay-at-home mom. This is for the yoga teacher. This is for the online entrepreneur that only is visible from the waist up. Yeah. And so going on to that whole thing about time and resources and energy, what about those of us that don't have time in the morning? Like, we barely have enough time to throw on yoga pants and a t-shirt, get kids out the door, partners and spouses need us, the dogs, the animals. What are 3 tips for everyday dressing for the woman who is doing it all and just has a crazy schedule?
So I have a couple of things to say to that. One is, I think that if you start with baby steps and you start to see results, it's kind of like any other practice, a meditation practice, a yoga practice, exercise, diet, that when you start to see results, then all of a sudden it becomes a priority. And so I do think it's worth making this a priority, right? And we all get dressed every day, and most of us don't feel good about it, right? So my first response is, maybe it's worth taking a little bit more time and just figuring out how to make your closet kind of feel like a sanctuary and a place you like to go. And if you create a system, right, it's just like any other system you have on your computer or your filing cabinet or your kitchen or wherever, right? Then it's not hard anymore. It's like, you know what goes with what. You go in there, you know what's going to make you feel good, and you're in and out. So a little bit of pre-work can help. But if you are super crazy and it's just like, this all feels like crazy and daunting to you, then I would say simplify, for one thing. Have fewer things. So 80% of most women's closet is clutter, right? So if you can get the clutter out and only have things in there that you are going to wear, and maybe only things you're going to wear this season, like go to the trouble of getting your spring and fall stuff, of your spring and summer stuff out of the closet for fall and winter, so it's not even there. And then maybe just have basics, right? Make solid colors, like coordinates, like jackets, tops, skirts, dresses, pants, all in solids. And then you can just throw them together and you can add different accessories to them. I think that is, and if you just think about, like, don't you get anxious when you're around a lot of clutter? You know? So it just is calm. Like, go make it a calm place with fewer things, you know, look good on you, that you don't have to think about. And that's what I would recommend. And this whole idea of making it intentional. So start there. Like, just start thinking about, who are you? How do you want to show up? Do the clothes in your closet represent you? And there's so many women in the world who need clothes, right? So don't feel guilty if you bought something and you never wore it. Know that there's somebody out there that it's better hanging in their closet and being worn than hanging in your closet and not being worn.
And I'll talk to you offline, and we'll make sure that under your talk that we'll have some different resources for places that you can donate your clothes that actually help for them. Instead of just doing consignment, which is great, and dropping off at the thrift store, there are some intentional places where women are actually getting use out of them. So we'll make sure that we have some of those shared.
Awesome.
What are some of the differences that you've seen with your clients who have worked with you? Whether it's physical manifestation or success or relationship changes. Do you have a couple of stories of people that have just been like, wow, night and day difference after working with you?
Yeah, I had an event here the other night, and it was really fun because I had a combination of people that had never met me before to people that had been working with me for years. And a couple of the women that had been working with me for years, stood up and talked about how life-changing the experience has been for them. And, it's women, as you said, it's women of all walks of life, right? So I have one client who is about to turn 70. And when I first met her, I met her at the fashion show. And so people you guys don't know what the fashion show is, right? So Naomi and I met at a fashion show where Naomi volunteered to be a model for this Chamber of Commerce event, right? And so Shelley saw the transformation of the women in that fashion show who she already knew, and then walked down the runway, and she's like, that's amazing, right? So then she came to my workshop, and she said she never thought of herself as frumpy. But now when she looks pictures of how she used to dress to who she is now, it's like, she says, I went from ordinary to extraordinary. Everywhere she goes now, she feels more attractive and sexy at almost 70 than she did her entire life. And she tripled her sales in her small business. Her relationship with her husband changed. Her relationship with her children changed. Yeah. It was an amazing transformation.
Well, and because I do know Shelley, to look at her, she exudes light. I mean,
oh my God,
amazing when she walks into a room, and you want to spend time with her. Like you
to
have time with Shelley, but it's because of how she shows up.
Yeah, and Shelley loves Shelley, which is what's most important, and that wasn't the case before. She kind of just fell into the background, and then I have other women who are professionals who totally changed their game and got the promotion that they'd been looking for, or the raise that they've been looking for, that they didn't feel like they had the confidence to ask for. I have one client who she herself has been transformed, and so she brought in her 18-year-old daughter, and her daughter was like, I'm not really sure I want all of this. But then she actually did an internship with her mom. And she turned to her mom one day because there was this one kind of difficult personality in the office. And she said, I was standing there in my clothes that Cyndy helped me with confidence. And all of a sudden I realized why this matters, because I was able to kind of be in my own with this woman who was kind of belittling her. And so, the whole thing is really about how it makes you feel and the empowerment you get by just showing up and feeling comfortable with who you are in your own skin. And so actually kind of gives me goosebumps. It just, this is exactly what I wanted the business to be, is yes, it's a business, but more than that, it's a passion for me. And the fact that I am actually changing women's lives and how they feel about themselves, it just totally helps me erase my past and all of those horrible moments that I experienced with my own closet and mirror. And
yeah. Well, and I noticed, I shared with a friend after we finished working together, that because I was intentionally choosing, not when I show up for people in public, but when I go out to the grocery store or I drop books off at the library, because I'm intentional about the way I dress, it makes me that much more encouraged to say something to somebody else or compliment somebody else on their or their hair. And it's such a connection point, and it's such a little olive branch and a kindness. And it just, if we all had a little bit of that, imagine the world.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. The better we feel about ourselves. Like, I know that when I did not feel good about myself all those years, I was prickly and defensive because I didn't feel good about myself, and I felt more competitive with other women. Whereas now it's just really easy to be generous because I like myself. And so, we need to have empathy for other women when they're acting like that and know that it's something within them that's not content right then.
Yeah. Do you have a personal mantra or a word that you actually do? What are your words in your brand?
Well, I've kind of boiled my brand down to, I want to show up as kind of elegant, sophisticated, creative.
Mm-hmm.
So my words are inspiring, generous, authentic, approachable, creative, and elegant.
I love it. And they're all very fitting.
Oh, thank you.
Who do you look to, or what do you turn on? What do you surround yourself with when you need a reset? Because it's not always good. There's always moments of self-doubt and exhaustion and all of that stuff. What's your go-to in those moments?
The truth is it's usually my family. It's my husband and my son. Mostly my husband if I'm feeling frustrated or if I want to celebrate, but both of them. I have a very mature 13-year-old who is a big part of my life. So they're amazing for me.
That's awesome. My alarm was just going off. I have my words on my phone as a to remind myself of what my deal is. So it just popped up and said quiet power, authenticity, and worldly. So that was
awesome. I love that.
Where can we find you? Your book will be out by the time this video is live. Yay! So much work went into that.
Naomi's gonna be in it.
It'll be fun. It's gonna be so great to have another place for people to know your goodness.
Thank you.
What's your website?
So it's cyndyporter.com, CYNDY porter.com. So that's the best place to find me. I also have this Facebook group for women. So if anybody's on Facebook, just ask to be included. It's a community for like-minded women to post and ask questions that maybe they don't want the whole world to see. And yeah, by the time this launches, I will have my book and I will have a digital download of my program so that people all over the world can have access to what I do. So, what you are doing amazing stuff, my friend, and I am so honored to be a part of it. And I can't wait to follow you and watch where this goes. So thank you so much.
Well, and I have to just tell people, because maybe this will actually start to take off. I decided that we needed a hashtag, what would Cyndy say? Because after working with you, everywhere I go and every morning I get to ask, I think, okay, what would Cyndy say? So if anyone's listening to this and has been inspired, we'd love to see you on social posting with the what would Cyndy say hashtag, and it's CYNDY.
You're awesome.
Thank you, Cyndy. I've really enjoyed talking. Love you.
Love you too. Bye.